result. And also the breaking news coming out about Everton and Nottingham Forest is our friend Anita Jones, who got the memo today, by the way. Blazers only on Box to Box. Anita looking fly as per usual. Thanks for taking the time to join us today. We will not make you sing any Billy Idol or Billy Joel. Maybe that'll come up later if we've got some time. But let's focus on this Everton and Nottingham Forest story, both teams being charged with breaking the financial rules. What more can you tell us about this developing story?
Yeah, what can I say, first of all? Maybe we need to shout out to Dubs, our producer. Maybe he told me to wear blazer today, come fresh on a Monday. Especially as we're going to talk about big, important news, Yeah,
very true.
You mentioned Everton and Nottingham Forest. Yes, so it's been reported that they have breached the Premier League's financial and sustainability rules for the year of 2022-2023. So our viewers at home obviously would know about the situation with Everton, who have also been accused of breaching rules, but for the 3 seasons prior to last season. So it's starting to get a bit complicated here. Now, essentially, all clubs had to submit their finances before December 31st, and then the Premier League had a period of 14 days to essentially say if any of the clubs had breached the financial rules. And it's come out that Everton and Nottingham Forest have. Both clubs have acknowledged this, and essentially the next step is for an independent commission to review the accusations made by the Premier League. We don't have access to the exact financial situation of both clubs and how much they've deemed to have breached these rules by, but essentially each club has £105 million that they can essentially lose within a period of 3 seasons. In the case of Nottingham Forest, this is slightly different for them because they were in the Championship until recently. This is just their second league in the Premier League. And so the threshold for them to be able to lose is actually reduced. It's around the £60 million mark. And so they've been accused of spending, they're known, they've spent £250 million, but their losses have been really high. And the one signing that seems to have tipped them over the edge, or the sell rather, is of Brennan Johnson. So Brennan Johnson joined Tottenham Hotspur in the summer transfer window last year. And the club are alleging if they'd sold him to the North London club at the start of the transfer window, they would have got a much less price for him than they did right at the end of the window, which was in the region of £40 million. The issue being with Nottingham Forest, though, is that they have signed so many players since promotion in May 2022, and I said they've spent £250 million. So can they justify delaying the sale of him? I'm not sure. That's what we'll see over the coming days, weeks and months. And then with Everton last year, they had huge financial issues with their ownership, with sponsorship, of course, trying to fund a new stadium. So I imagine more details will come out in the near future, but that's where it stands. Nottingham Forest is the third club to be accused of breaching these financial rules, and obviously Everton, it's the second time that they're being accused.
It's really complicated for a lot of people to understand exactly what's going on, and I'm starting to get the feeling that it's also complicated for Everton and Nottingham Forest to understand exactly how to do business, especially for Nottingham Forest in their case, Anita. They get promoted. You mentioned it. It's really difficult to understand how a team is willing to spend their money because they've got the money to do so to try and get promoted. Then you get into the Premier League. How are you supposed to be competitive if you don't spend money? For clubs like Nottingham Forest, for clubs like Everton, as you know as well as I do, it is not easy to attract the best players. So you have to then go and sign more players to be competitive across the board. So isn't it making it much more difficult for clubs like Nottingham Forest just to stay in the league by having rules and regulations like this? Shouldn't it be swapped around where you give them a chance?
Yeah, that's a very fair question, Ian. The only thing is, I remember being on this show, we talk about how many players they signed. 42 players since they've been promoted. That is really what a number of players. You question whether they needed to sign all of those, but the point you've raised is really true. Are the clubs coming up from the Championship supported enough to be able to be competitive with the clubs that are already tried and established in the top flight and potentially have more money to play with? So yeah, a lot of questions will come out of it, and something that you're saying is really valuable, because we talk about wanting to preserve the league and make it as attractive as it has been, where these stories of clubs that haven't been in the top flight come up. Of course, Nottingham Forest do have a rich previous history of being in the Premier League, but if we want them to stay in the league, we need to make it attractive and easily accessible for them to do so. So a lot of questions will be raised over these coming days and months, like I said.
Anita, that kind of Cinderella story of promotion isn't necessarily the case for this Everton side, who's now found themselves in this position yet again. What's going on with Everton at the moment, currently facing a 10-point deduction this season for violations in the same area?
Yeah, so you mentioned it's a 10-point deduction that they received earlier in the year. So that was for the 3 seasons prior to the 2022-2023. They are in the process of appealing that. We're waiting to hear the outcome of it. And then this is another breach for just the season last year, so the 2022-2023 campaign. It really just shows, I guess, the mismanagement of the club in the last few years. I mentioned, of course, the ownership selling the club, and then they've had issues with sponsorship because, of course, the club had dealings in Russia, and then there was the issue with the Ukrainian and Russia war, and then they've got a new stadium, most importantly, and stadiums cost a lot of money. All you have to do is look at the situation with Tottenham and how they're trying to fund their new incredible state-of-the-art stadium. So it really just speaks to just how much of a chaotic situation it's been around the club for the past few seasons. And you hope, especially Everton fans, that the players don't get distracted by this and they don't lose that resilience that we've seen in games, even at the weekend, managing to get a draw against an informed side like Aston Villa.
I was looking at the finances today from Newcastle United. They dropped this morning, and it was really interesting to see how well that football club is run. Although running at a bit of a loss there once again this season, they still managed to have an incredible financial year, and they're managing to keep within the rules and regulations. They're making smart decisions to signing the right players so that they stay within the rules. But for Everton and for Nottingham Forest, it seems to be mismanagement, miscommunication, misunderstanding. What are you expecting the outcome personally to be for Nottingham Forest and Everton now?
Well, it's an independent commission. That's the next step. So the Premier League have communicated to the clubs that they believe they've made this breach, and an independent commission will review what the Premier League has said. And I mentioned in the case of Nottingham Forest, they've said that one of the key issues for them, having passed the loss limit for their club in particular, has to do with that sale about Brennan Johnson. So it really depends on how the commission view that as an argument. Is it a strong enough argument? I mentioned they've bought 42 players since May 2022. So you wonder, should they sanction that many sales? Will they have sympathy, I guess, to them at the end of the day? And in terms of the losses themselves, we're not privy to those yet because they haven't been published. So I wouldn't be able to say personally what I think is going to happen, because obviously looming in the background of this is Manchester City, who have got, 115 breaches against them. So it's a real evolving situation at the moment to see how things go. And of course, Everton's appeal as well. We don't know the outcome of that yet. So it's really hard to, I guess, predict what could happen in either of these situations at the moment.
I totally agree with that. It's so confusing, and it's so difficult for clubs to be run nowadays. Yeah. And you mentioned 42 players, Anita. That's absolutely insane. New stadium for Everton coming. We want them both to be competitive. We want them both to stay in the Premier League and be competitive with the best players. But 42 players seems excessive to sign. Everton seems to have been a little bit unlucky with obviously the sponsorship, but there's a lot of misfortune apparently being reported from these clubs, whereas with Manchester City and Newcastle, from what I just mentioned, a little bit better run.
Yeah, confusing for the clubs, and confusing just trying to sift through all this information. So Anita, thank you for your insight and the incredible context that you provided as well. We will let you go, but look forward to catching up with you more as we get more and more information on this developing story, as Everton and Nottingham Forest both facing charges from the Premier League for breaking profit and sustainability rules last season.